Hi everyone, this is Subhash from Skyrise International Academy. In today's session, I would like to give you some outputs about the IELTS Writing Task 2 academic. The very word academic itself describes the fact that it is an academic task in which you are required to respond to the question in an academic way. This is called academic because this is something that you will find in your textbooks, in your university campus, or in your school college curriculum, that you will find stuff like this. So this is the only difference between the academic module and the general training module in the IELTS writing task. So because task 1 for the general training module is usually a letter, and this requires a little bit of brainstorming and a little more of the academic skills. That's why we differentiate this from the other test, the other general training test. Now, there are some graphs and charts which you will get to work upon in the writing task 1 question of the IELTS test. I have taken five of the major types of graphs and charts that you could come across in the IELTS writing task 1. First of all, we have the bar graph, which will look like this, because it has got bars on the x-axis. That's why it's called a bar chart, bar graph. Then you have line graph, which will have representations with lines. On the x and y axis, you will have lines. That's why it's called a linear graph or a line graph. Then you have a pie chart. This looks like a pizza, and it looks like a pie. That's why it's called a pie. It has got slices and different parts. And you have the flow chart. This is like a flow, like you got some boxes, then you connect one box to the other, and you have representation of different data on there. And you have a table which looks exactly like a table. That's why we call it a table. And now coming back to this, when you deal with this, there are certain words and phrases and nouns and adjectives that you need to be aware of when you make comparisons, when you describe any of these charts. And therefore there are some words and phrases which you need to be aware of, and you like to represent them in an academic way. So usually the first statement that you make, the top in the introduction part, the first statement that you make, this chart demonstrates. So these are various words you can use. These are the different variants for this. In the question you will have this, the following chart shows. So in the place of shows, you can use any of these: demonstrate, depicts, show, represents, lists. So some of these words which I would like to introduce to you. Then in this you have different trends. When you describe something, when you describe the increase or decrease or the stability of something that happened, of the incidents that happened, so you would need to use certain words. So when you describe an upward trend, on the graph you will find a line that goes up, which is definitely understood as an increase. So whenever you talk about an upward trend, it could be a raise in anything. When we describe an upward trend, we could use increased. Now let's say the sales increased in this particular year. Shot up is the second form of shoot, then went up. Climbed is again another academic word you can use in this scenario. Jumped is again another word. Rose, rise, second form of rise is rose. So whenever you describe anything in the past, in this case you could always use simple past, because you would be telling about a specific time of the year, a specific date, or you will have substantial data to substitute this action as to when it happened, a specific date and time. And therefore it could always be used in simple past, because simple past denotes an action about which you have a specific date and time, because it happened last year in the year 1982. So, and you have a particular date, a time. And in this, in the second part, you will also be required to describe a downward trend, a decreasing trend. In that you could use declined, decreased, went down, dropped, plummeted, slumped. These are all alternatives for decrease. So instead of why I'm giving all these words together, you might be required to use the similar type of words in the essay several times. So instead of using declined every time, you could use decreased, went down, or any of these variants. It is always good to have vocabulary which you will be able to substitute in the place of one single word. You talk about stability, you say remained steady, remained stable, remained plateau. You can say remained constant without any change, yes. Then you talk about some adjectives that you could use for describing certain trends. So that will be, you say a gradual is an adjective, you say a gradual increase, a gradual decline. So with this you will have to use nouns. So gradual decrease, moderate drop, let's say modest increase. Okay, now so here we have used them as verbs, and you will have to use them as nouns when you use them with these adjectives. Let's say a sharp increase, a dramatic drop in the sales or in the supply of any commodities. So there will be different charts with which you will have to use all of them in most of these charts. So it is important that you use an adjective followed by a noun. That is the way you should be framing particular sentences in this regard. Then again, I have put this halved and doubled in the corner in the box because whenever you want to talk about fractions, when you want to say that it has decreased to half, and then you can say, you can use it in the past, halved. Halved is half. It is the past form of halved. So instead of using the F, we use halved, H-A-L-V-E-D. Then you can also use doubled when you want to say it became just the double, just one time more than what was in a particular year. So you could use both of these in this place.